What's up, everyone? Nick here from The Real Heroes Show. If you're wondering why the cropped frame looks a little different or a bit odd, it's because I have cropped it in order to save you all from the jeering sunlight that is blasting through my window. Yeah, I need to get some blackout curtains. It's in my list of things to do in the future. Anyway, I'm here to bring you the second half of The Witcher Season 2 review. Now, I did the first half review, and I broke it into each episode, and that's basically where I stopped to watch and do other things. I'm going to do something a little bit different here and just give a whole review of the second half, but more so of the season and how it's sort of left us. So the interesting point that I'll make is I enjoyed this season. I think I enjoyed it more than the first season because the first season was literally all over the place. I think the actors in each of the roles did a great job. I really did. You know, Henry Cavill kills it. Freya kills it as Ciri. Anya kills it as Yennefer, right? Like, great job, everyone, I think. The story, on the other hand, is what we need to talk about, right? Because there's the characterizations, the developments for each of the characters that plays a pivotal role in the show version. We can already know and already see that there's been a deviation from even the characters in the game to how things are in this season. And again, that's just it's what happens. You know, things have changed in other shows, other movies, from adaptations, and it's unfortunately something that we just really have to live with. And again, if we don't like the show or movie adaptation, well, we still have the source material. It's happened a lot in the MCU, the DCEU, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings. You know, there's been some have been more accurate than others, but in the points that might not be perceived as a job well done is oftentimes where things have deviated. Now, on the opposite side, there's a show that we covered here on this channel called Foundation, which is based on an Isaac Asimov sci-fi trilogy and other books. And the parts that were from the books actually ended up being the parts that we didn't like at all for the most part. And the parts that were changed and newly created were the more fascinating parts. So what does that say? It says that you can change things, but just tell a good job in telling the story. And that's something here that we don't really get for the most part in terms of The Witcher Season 2. Again, the characters are slightly different than they are in the game, which is basically my knowledge. I have not read the books, as I've prefaced that in the first half review, although I did order the books. So I'm waiting for those to arrive so I can read them, catch up, and just be a little more prepared to see what comes in the future. I am half expecting the future of the show on Netflix to deviate more from the books, although still try to pull some similarities from it. I know there are some book readers out there who aren't really satisfied with the way things are. There's a person who left a very thorough comment on the first video that I did, and whoever that was, if you're watching this, I really do appreciate you leaving me those points. Again, as I stated, I wanted to watch the rest of the season and then go back and read your points, and I can see what you mean by there's not enough world building. We get the names, we don't see it. The sets aren't that expansive. Again, the character developments could have been better. There's a lot of characters that get involved. There's well over a dozen characters, both major and minor, that are thrown into this. And then, the only sort of, quote unquote villain or antagonist that we see here in season 2 is basically Volith Mir. And she's essentially done with by the end, and I think for the sake of establishing a larger villain, it might be Ymir, right? Because he wants to go after his daughter, go after Ciri. I'm not sure if the Wild Hunt is going to, the Wraiths of Morhog are going to play a more pivotal role in the future. I want to say yes, although again, I'm unfamiliar with that aspect of it. There were great parts, I think, in this in these 5 episodes as well, though. I think some action the action that there was cool. I think seeing the monsters is a cool thing, seeing the adaptations of it, but at the same time, like, you can't be like, oh well, here's Geralt fighting a monster this episode and this episode, and that's all it is. Like, this isn't a Monster Hunter type of show. There needs to be more depth. And again, with Henry Cavill stating that he tried to pull as much as he could out of book Geralt, and try to tell the showrunner, like, hey, this is what is done in this chapter or this book on this page, and it might not really be thrown in there, which is unfortunate, because at the same time, that's what some people want to see, and it's what the fans want to see. And I know that there's this, again, there's always going to be this sort of divide where people haven't read the books, and they say, oh, well, too bad, right? And it's like, but listen, man, without the books, this show wouldn't exist, much like anything. Game of Thrones wouldn't have existed if George R.R. Martin didn't write them. Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit wouldn't have existed if Tolkien didn't write them, right? We can go on and on with this. The source material needs respect. You got to put respect on it, because these shows that we love, look at every single Marvel character. The shows, the movies, whether you like them or you hate them. If it weren't for the comics, they wouldn't exist. So I think people need to lay off the source material hating and pay some homage to it. So bearing that in mind, when things deviate from it, you need to understand the frustration. All I'm asking is for people to have an open mind about this, like, shift your perspective. Like myself, I have not read the source material, so I can put some sort of criticism as to how the show is for the show itself, what the show story is trying to tell. But then I'm not going to get all mad and be like, oh, so what if it deviated from the source material? Who cares? That's not what I'm saying at all. And if you're saying that, all I'm saying is that maybe you should take a step back and at least have some sort of, again, some sort of perspective shift to understand how fans are frustrated. Star Wars is another big frustration that people had. And I'm not even going to get into that, because I could talk about that for hours. Game of Thrones is another big one. It was stated, even by Benioff and Weiss, the moment they started to deviate from the books, George even said this as well, the moment they started to deviate from the books, that's when the show started to get worse. And we all know how bad season 8 of Game of Thrones was. It was an atrocity, a disaster, a complete shit show. You know what I mean? So I don't want that to continue happening for some of these beloved shows, these IPs that people actually give a shit about. So for the sake of looking at the promising aspects of what may come from The Witcher seasons, I want to see more from the relationship of Geralt and Yennefer. They're supposed to be lovers. We don't really see that. Ciri and Geralt, I think that relationship needs to be fleshed out a bit more as well. I'd like to see, again, more of a father-son relationship between Vesemir and Geralt. I don't know how often we'll see Vesemir in the future seasons. I think, again, one of the aspects I really liked about this show, especially these last 4 episodes, is based on the elves. Particularly between Francesca and Frangilla, and or rather Francesca and Filavandrel. Whereas Frangilla's trying to help the elves while she tries to help herself, and that ultimately has and seemingly backfired. Francesca's going on this rampage of vengeance and just killing babies, which again was pretty menacing. I know the person in the comments was like, these villains aren't menacing enough, and even the deathless mother, Volthmir, I didn't really think that she was something to be super feared of. I mean, I think in the sake of maybe in the finale when she's entered Ciri's body, maybe at that point. But again, a simple slicing of the wrists and killing some basilisks and throwing her in the portal there. It kind of seemed a little bit, I would say a little bit too easy. But it didn't again seem frightening enough for a main villain. So for the sake of what they do in the future, again, I think whether it's the other lords or Ymir, that really presents a big problem for our stars here, our protagonists. I'd like to see more dire scenarios for them to survive. Like some actual pressure and seriousness of these circumstances here. I think the aspects of other characters that didn't get enough limelight, Tisea, I really hope she gets more showtime next season. Some of the other characters seemed honestly a bit random, and while they had their places, like Istrid had his place, the Brotherhood, I guess, had their place with Dijkstra kind of just being a weird drunken crazy mage. I think for the sake of what the elves might do, with this Henekir, I think if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and going with Ithilne's prophecy and thinking that Ciri is their answer. It almost seems like the setup here is, well, Ymir wants Ciri, but the elves want Ciri as well. So it's really the battle for Ciri, and what is Geralt going to do at that point? Obviously, he's going to protect her at all costs, but who is he really going to kind of, I don't want to say ally with, but definitely trust. I don't think he'll trust Ymir. And even though Ciri might be like, "Oh my God, like Dad," I don't think she will. And I think for the sake of maybe being a little spooked from the elves, she might not want to go with the elves. So, and she might just want to stay with Yennefer and Geralt, which, I think this whole, like, Geralt just needs to forgive Yennefer for all that. Like, honestly, it was not that offensive. Like, I think Yennefer was forthcoming enough, and asked for forgiveness and proved herself to him that, she didn't know she was in a tough spot. He should have seen that. So for him to be kind of mad about it all at the end, I'm like, I don't know. That's just kind of lame to me. So all in all, I think, the other minor parts of the show that I really wanted to see a little bit more of, and I guess we'll never really see more of in the future here. But as far as Rience getting the mutagen, and also Lydia, who got her face all fucked up. Who is her boss? Because we don't know. Kind of see like a shadowed, cloaked figure, but that's about it. So I think for the sake of getting that answer, maybe that's the villain that we need. And again, if that's something that's in the books, then the book readers might know something a little bit more. I think for the sake of learning a little bit more about who the owl was at the end, and that being Philippa, and I think we'll see more of Philippa in season 3. But what else is that stirring? So more of the Brotherhood, more of Stregobor, more of Dijkstra, and I like Graham McTavish. Of course, I liked him in the Hobbit trilogy. So anytime you see one of those actors, to me is it's always a fun time, especially when they're doing this sort of like fantasy type role, right? And I think for the sake of this season in its entirety, I looked online about what people were rating it, and as far as season 2 goes, if IMDb's rating is correct and it's not taking season 1 and 2 into account and just going based on season 2, then we're looking at an 8.2 average, with the first episode and the finale episode being the best and highest rated. And I would probably agree with that. I think, and I even said this in my first video, the first 4 episodes seemed like they were off to an interesting pace. And I thought so far, it was better than season 1. We're not all over the damn place and going like what's what and who's who. Finale, we got some things answered. They closed some things, but it's sort of like what was the point of some of the arcs that existed? We know Ciri's powerful. We know that there are we know that the monoliths may be portals through other spears. And it's like Geralt says, the Witchers put Volithmir, or imprisoned Volithmir for eternity, and now she's here all of a sudden. So I'm like, oh, so he does know who Volithmir is. And didn't really surprise me, because I felt like, Witchers know a lot of shit. And you kind of get that too from, like, obviously I know from the books, but even from the game aspect. So, I'd say for the sake of, some of the action, again, the fight with the Michelet brothers was pretty dope. There was some brutal deaths and scenes in that with Geralt. The table with Frangilla, when it's Cahir and Hake and some of the other soldiers, I guess, and they all freeze or become paralyzed from the nightshade that's masked in the mead, and she slowly stabs them in the head or in the throat or in the eye, and basically kills all of them except for Cahir. I thought that was pretty dope. I did. Obviously, Cahir probably realized, oh no, she is in power, so I'm not going to really try and overstep her. And maybe he's glad that he's still alive. So again, there are some really good aspects of this show. I definitely think it was easier to follow than season 1, but again, because you have so many characters, you're jumping back and forth, you're trying to tell all these arcs, all these stories, and it's like there's an overabundance of things to pay attention to. And even while you may tell it easily enough for people to understand what's going on, it's sort of like, again, the grand scheme of things, where is it all leading to? And because you look at, say, where season 2 of like Game of Thrones is and where that goes and what they're telling in 10 episodes compared to 8 episodes. And again, you've got 2 extra hours of content and a story to tell. And maybe that's something that might hurt The Witcher a little bit, is the lack of episodic content. 8 episodes compared to 10. 8 hours compared to 10 hours. There's more time. It's easier to tell a little bit more, especially if you're pulling things from the source material. But if you're not pulling from the source material and you're trying to come up with it all on your own, well, then yeah, there again is another problem. So, all in all, I think for the most part, again, I understand how things are a little dismantled from the source material and how book readers are, just unimpressed with things. And just like the person in the comments, was very in depth and in detailed behind it. And again, I totally understand about being passionate from a book stance. And, for the sake of what's coming on Amazon Prime with the Lord of the Rings series, you best know that I will be critiquing the ever-living shit out of that because of how big of a fan I am of Lord of the Rings. And for the sake of what else is coming, Game of Thrones wise, there's also another show coming out that is based on the prequels of Game of Thrones 300 years ago. As I move my keys, because I'm grabbing something that is a point I'm trying to make. If you're wondering, will he ever read the Witcher books? Yes, I'm a man of my word, and because of that, there's also another book that's coming out, or the show that's coming out based on this book right here. It's rather thick, but you bet your asses that I am going to be covering it and critiquing it based on what the page has done and what HBO decides to do, because we all know that George R.R. Martin is on board with this. Is going along with this. So I am very interested to see what changes, what doesn't. Is it better than what was written that he initially wrote? We'll see. Maybe HBO learned a little bit more of their lessons with Game of Thrones season 8. Maybe George himself did. And maybe we'll get a pretty great first season of that series on HBO. So I'd also say for the sake of there goes a Slack message. I'd also say for the sake of what may come from a future season of The Witcher, which we know the Blood Origin prequel is coming out. I believe I saw that production starts in July, or started in July of this year. Of 2021. Wow. So I wonder if we'll get that before the season 3 of The Witcher with Geralt and Ciri and Yennefer. So, but I'll cover that as well. And again, if that is part of the books, then great. Hopefully I'll read that in time, which I'm sure I will. So, but yeah, I think that's going to about do it for me. I know on Rotten Tomatoes, actually speaking of other ratings, I know Rotten Tomato-wise, the critics gave it a very high rating. I think it was like 94% for season 2. And I think it was 61% from the audience perspective. So it's very interesting, even from those 2 points of 94 critics, 61 audience, compared to IMDb, which is giving it an 8.2. And then if you look on Rotten Tomatoes from season 1 to season 2, it was the opposite. Critics give it a low score, and the audience gave it a higher score, which, to me, that doesn't really make a lot of sense because, again, I don't think season 1 was that good. There were great parts from it, but I think this season was better than season 1. So, yeah, what do you all think? Do you think season 1 was better or worse than season 2? Did you think that season 2 could have been better, or did you just enjoy it the way it was? What are your expectations for season 3? Do you think anything of the prequels? From what I can gather, it's basically going to be before the Witchers and maybe seeing the first mutagen of the Witchers. So, that'll be cool. That'll be interesting. And, it's kind of like with the prequel to Game of Thrones here with the House of Blood, or Fire and Blood rather, that I think it's called House of the Dragon, for the show's name was. Anyway, you get a prequel to something, so it'll be interesting. I think again, prequels are always something fun to tackle and to talk about. We all know about the prequels of Star Wars, and people hated it and they love it, and they hate it and they love it. So yeah, with I think that's all I'm going to really talk about for this. So again, leave any comments below. I will respond to all of them and chime in. Again, I love seeing what people say about it. It's great to get people's perspectives on things. And yeah, if I have to give this a rating, I'll preface, I thought season 1 was about, I haven't seen season 1 since it came out, so I want to say I think season 1 was probably like a 6.5, and I want to say that season 2 was probably about, gotta hate to say it, but a 7. Could have been better. There's a lot that could have made it better. And I think the good parts made it from being any worse than it was. But I think it's interesting to give a number of ratings with, it's always a weird concept, even if you want to get granular and say like 6.3 or like 7.1, like, 66% or 73%, like it's such a subjective thing to say. And I think by giving detail of what makes it good and what makes it bad are the points that really do count. And a simple thumbs up or thumbs down. So maybe that in mind, if someone asked me if it was worth watching, I'll say it's worth watching. I've told people that haven't seen it yet to say, I'm like, yeah, just watch it. If you watch season 1, watch season 2, and see what you think. Again, I'm sure there are people out there who really loved this season, and that's totally fine. Listen, if you thoroughly enjoyed this season 2, great. Like, I'm happy for you. I'm glad people enjoyed it, because I know there are people who didn't, and I know there are people like myself who are sort of on the fence, or maybe lean a little bit more towards the positive side. But that's just because, again, we aren't really I'd say distraught because we don't know the source material. Like, again, some of the things that have changed from the video game stance, which is where my knowledge comes in, it's not enough to really make me hate the show, but I think that's where the ignorance is bliss part, where we haven't read the books or the comics, stuff like that, and we aren't sort of, I hate to use the word tainted by it, because that's the content that we know and we base the show off of. And when that's taken away from us, we get bummed out. It's like I was a big EU fan from Star Wars. I've collected dozens of those books, played those games, and when the stuff that like that gets retconned, it's a bummer. When things change like that, it's like, why? This material is so amazing and excellently written, great stories, great character development, great plot points. And when those things change, it's like, huh? Why? But yeah, so again, for the sake of what we don't know from the source material of The Witcher, maybe it's a blessing to those of us that haven't read it, and we're just basing what we see from the show on the show itself. So again, thanks so much for watching if you made it this far. Slightly less time than the first video. So again, if you've watched all of this, I'd love to hear and see your thoughts on the comment section below. And until next time, I'll catch you more on many other videos that I'll be doing here on the channel, but especially on all Witcher content. So catch you all later. Cheers.